Hello there everybody and welcome to the Entertainment Headquarters, your headquarters where we talk all things entertainment, movies, television, news, reviews and more. And right now I would like to talk to you about a film that I just happened to come across on Amazon Prime. Yes, it is the film Muzzle starring Aaron Eckhart. Now, Aaron Eckhart for me is quite a credible actor. He's been in a load of amazing films. He makes a mixture of, as you know, the big blockbuster films, but he also likes to do these independent, quite dramatic films as well. And this film, Muzzle, fits his uh, resume perfectly. Um, it's a simple story, but it has a lot of dark tones to it. So I'll get into it a bit. So it was directed by John Stolberg, and the story is after his dog is killed in Skid Row, Jake Rosser plummets deep into a sinister underworld to uncover the truth about who may be responsible. So the character that Aaron Eckhart plays, Jake, he has suffered from PTSD, and he used to be, I believe, either in the army or a marine, and he's now part of the K9 force at the LAPD, and he has his own dog that's so loyal to him. Anything he says, it follows him, called Ace. And one day, there's a disturbance in uh, the downtown area, and it's just full of homelessness, it's full of drug use. That's the one thing about this film with its dark tones. It does show you the realities and the kind of the turmoils in society when it comes to the, homelessness and the strong drug use. So it has a lot of these dark elements to it, this nitty grittiness. And he then obviously goes with Rex, who's his partner. Sorry, Ace, who's his partner. And he basically comes across, there's a car that's been stolen. They investigate it with other police officers there. It's determined that this car is being stolen by somebody who is obviously dealing in drugs. There's a bit of drama goes on. The culprit, he runs off. Ace, when he's investigating the car, there's an explosion, a bomb, and police officers are hurt. Ace and Jake go after the criminal, who at one point he's wearing this jacket. He decides to put his jacket to cover himself and to hide by putting it on a homeless man. And obviously Ace goes after the homeless man. The other gentleman, the suspect, he is then able to talk to Ace by talking to him in German, because they train the dogs in both to understand your commands in English and for whatever reason in German. And so Ace basically follows the command of the criminal, who's the suspect, who's trying to get away. And there's a bit of a gun and fight with Jake, and the subject is killed. He falls to his death, but in the meantime, during this fight and this struggle, Ace is fatally wounded and is he is carried by Jake over to the ambulance station, and the paramedic is working on the injured police officers and sees people before animals, basically. And because of this, Ace dies, and because of Jake's PTSD, he kind of goes down a very dark path. And that is the basic of the start of the story. And then as the film progresses, he's, going to see a therapist. He's determined to discover, who was behind this drug cartel, and he just wants to put an end to it. He wants to stop this this cycle of abuse that's happening on the streets. And so then eventually, through his therapist and through working with other members of the police force, some are for him, some are basically look at him as like, he's nothing but a nuisance. And he's got a motive. His motive is he wants to put an end to the drugs, uh, try and stop the cartel, but he's also suffering with the loss of Ace. And I've read some reviews when it comes to Aaron Eckhart's performance as Jake, and a lot of people say it's it's very hollow. There's not much substance to it. But I look at it at this is, if he is suffering from PTSD, unless you're going through that yourself, you'll never know. And for me, his performance it's very accurate. I've known people that went through it, and he shows little to no emotion at some times, and other times, especially the scenes with the therapist, you can see him trying to break through the walls. And of course, throughout the story, when he starts to get, help from some of the officers, um, one particular person in this is also Stephen Lang, who, he's normally typecast as like a villain character. He doesn't have much to do in this particular film, but he plays the dog trainer, and it's suggested that Jake gets another dog, and out of all the dogs he could choose from, he chooses the dog that basically has the most trauma that's going on. It's a dog that's been severely abused. It's went through some sort of traumatic experience, and it's got a titanium tooth, because clearly it's been beaten up and severely abused, and it's suffering itself probably through some sort of PTSD in itself. And so obviously he instantly sees a bond with this other dog, which is now named Socks. So he has a new partner. He gets into a relationship with a co-worker called Maya, who is played by, I think, Penelope Mitchell. So is trying to rebuild his life, but at the same time, in the back of his mind, there's a part of him missing. And that thing that's missing is the fact that Ace was killed during this situation with this drug cartel, and he just cannot put it to rest. And so then he decides to go out there and, on his own terms, kind of investigate this drug cartel. And there's instances with Socks where they are investigating, and they come across another gentleman who's clearly works for them, who, without putting spoilers out there, there's some clues that are delivered to him by another police officer, and he goes and investigates with the information he's given, and he comes across this large luxury mini mansion. And when he investigates, Socks suddenly becomes very frightened and is afraid, because there is this little tiny bottle that has a chemical, some sort of drug in it, that's terrifying her. And so he instantly knows the abuse she's been through in the past, and the connection to this drug cartel is linked. So that takes you deeper into the plot, and as the plot goes on, it all links together, and it's very dark, it's very gritty. There is a little bit of tussle and bustle and action in this, but the main plot and the main part of this story is about Jake overcoming his PTSD, his bond with his dog, and the fact that he's wanting revenge for the death of this dog, and he also just wants to put an end to clearly this misery that's happening around him within the world of the drug cartel and the homelessness, and people suffering with the drug situation. um I thought it. I thought the cinematography was quite good in this. I love the fact that when it came to Ace and even Times of Socks, you saw angles from the dog's perspective. So when they're chasing the culprits, the suspects, they show you Jake, Aaron Eckhart, running after them, and then you will immediately see the dog chasing alongside him, and then the camera will zoom to, like, you're looking out of the dog's eyes and you're seeing the culprit, the suspect, running away. And I thought that was well crafted and well put together. This is a bit of a slow burn, but it does grip you if you're into these nitty gritty kind of medium budget thrillers, crime thrillers. This is probably something that you could probably watch and enjoy. I just enjoyed it because it was as simple about a man wanting justice. It was about a man who's wanting to clean up the streets, stop the drugs, but it's also about him in grief and healing himself. And that for me, I found very, very interesting. How it all came about in the end. Um, it does become a little bit unhinged and a little bit silly at times, but I do think it's a thriller that's worth seeing. And if you're a dog lover, if you're into these things, this is a film you will probably enjoy. Um, I love the relationship between Jake. I love the two dogs. Everybody who's an animal lover will probably be rooting for Jake. You'll be rooting for Socks. Um, the villains in this are your stereotypical villains that you see in these kind of movies. There isn't really a main villain that you want to see get the comeuppance by the end. The overall plot and how it bonds together, and you find out, the connection between the cartel and the dog Socks. I found really interesting. Some people said it was predictable. I wouldn't have necessarily said it was predictable, but I do think it was an interesting way to link what was happening on the streets to the police force and to the dogs. And overall, that's what this is about the man and his dog. And Aaron Eckhart, like I say, I think he did a believable job as Jake, a man suffering from PTSD, and how he overcomes the odds to do the right thing and want to do good in the world. The other cast members, like I say, Stephen Lang, who plays Leland, who is basically the head dog trainer. He's like he basically turns to him and said, a dog doesn't just obey your commands because you just see your commands. It has to feel you, it has to trust you, it has to want to not just obey you, but it has to have a bond and a trust with you. And so, yes, the slow build between the relationship of Socks and Jake is very believable, and how they were able to do that too, I thought was really puts the heart in the film. It really does. I think it's all about heart when it comes to the dogs, and you just have that dark, gritty side with the cartel and the homelessness and the social issues that are put on display, and it's done realistically. Um, but yes, I thoroughly enjoyed this for what it was. I've seen better movies, I have, but I liked the elements that I saw, which was about a man, like I've mentioned a few times, trying to overcome his PTSD, trying to get over grief, trying to forge a path forward, um, to build a better life, but to also want to do good in the world and to stop this, to stop the drugs, and to, in his own way, build a better place. And on the element of that, gaining revenge for the loss of his dog, Ace, and and basically the bond and the growth of Socks as well. Socks starts off as a dog who, after going through an abusive time, is doesn't trust anybody, doesn't want to really connect with anybody, and throughout time you see her slowly letting her guard up and slowly connecting with the character of Jake. And by the film's end, you'll see the results of that relationship. Um, but overall, I would definitely say give Muzzle a go if you're into these kind of medium budget but interesting crime thrillers with dogs. So I'm going to give Muzzle a 7 out of 10. It's on Amazon Prime. It's available to watch now. And so if I would give it a go, just for seeing how the story goes, and to see Jake evolve, to see the bond between dogs, and to see how uh, the police force, the K9 system works as well. It shows you a little bit of the ins and outs of how that works. So it's all interesting, real stuff. It's very realistic. It's very gritty. It can be dark. And if you're into those things, this should appease you. So Muzzle gets 7 out of 10 for me. And with that said, I want you to keep enjoying your movies, keep enjoying your television, and if you've seen Muzzle, let me know what you thought of it. If you haven't, give it a go and then let me know what you think of it. But until then, I'll see you all at the next one.